Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. So today we will be starting off with verse 94 of Surah Al-Ma'idah. You would recall that we had discussed that Surah Al-Ma'idah ends with an answer to 5 questions that were raised during the revelation of the surah, or they were actually found in the minds of people as well. And this is very similar to what had happened earlier on in Surah Nisa. Surah Nisa also ends with a very similar pattern in which some questions that were raised during its revelation were answered, and they were placed right at the end of the surah. So exactly in the same fashion, you will see that in Surah Al-Ma'idah also the last part of the surah consists of these answers. So we had already discussed 2 of those questions, and now we will be discussing the remaining questions. And so the third question actually starts off with the verse that we are going to begin with, and most of these verses actually begin with this formulaic Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu, which means believers. So let us begin this answer to the third question. It says, Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu la yabluwannakum Allahu bi shay'in min as-sayd tanaluhu aydikum wa rimahukum liya'lam Allahu man yakhafuhu bil ghayb faman i'tada ba'da dhalika falahu azabun alim. Believers, God will surely test you through a prey which will be accessible to your hands and spears, so that God may see who among you fears Him without observing, and who does not. Then he who transgressed the bounds prescribed by God, even after this admonition, for him there is a woeful punishment. So, as just referred to, this from here begins the answer to the third question. Now, the verse actually informs us of the trial which can befall the Arabs in particular when they are in a state of ihram and are suddenly confronted by a prey. I mean, if they are in ihram and they find a prey, an animal that they can catch. So, the Almighty wants to test their faith and piety, and they are told that they should be aware that just as on the day of Sabbath, the fish, by continuously raising their heads, would invite the Israelites to catch them, they too could be confronted with a similar situation. So, in order to understand the importance of this warning, first of all, there are certain things that have to be understood. Firstly, hunting in itself is a very tempting thing, especially for the Arabs. Remember, the Arabs were given to hunting, and it was like not only a pastime but also a need. So, it was their entertainment as well as their livelihood, and both depended on it. Secondly, whenever a prohibition is imposed on something tempting, it becomes even more tempting, and that is why it becomes a big test. The psychological effect of this eagerness and greed is that just as someone whose minds, they get fixated, he too starts seeing things everywhere, especially when they are deprived, or he is deprived of these things. So it's like a really tough test. Thirdly, when this prohibition is primarily meant for trial, then there is all the more chances that the Almighty creates situations in which the purpose of this trial is fulfilled. So, don't think that this was an easy trial. It was something that God is actually going to test you, and this is something which is clearly apparent for the words bishayim min as-sayd, which means through a prey which will be accessible to your hands and spears, so that God may see who among you fears Him without observing Him. So, bishayim min as-sayd actually means that due to the occurrence of the word shay, that without a definite article, it points out that even though this trial shall take place, it shall not be severe. I mean, the words bishayim will be properly translated as a little bit. So, a little bit, it shall be light. So, but nevertheless, it will be tempting, and therefore, as the Quran says, فَمَنِ اعْتَدَى بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فَلَهُ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. Then he who transgressed bounds prescribed by God, even after its prohibition, for him there is a woeful punishment. So, fears are of course always there, but then if you are people who are always observant of the limits of God, then that is something which is absolutely evident. Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu la taqtulus sayda wa antum hurum wa man qatalahu minkum muta'ammidan fajaza'un mithlu ma qatala minan na'am yahkumu bihi zawa adlim minkum hadiyan baligh al-Ka'ba aw kaffaratun ta'amu masakin أو أدل ذلك صياما ليذوق وبال أمره عفى الله عما سلف ومن عاد فينتقم الله منه والله عزيز ذو انتقام. So it says that believers do not hunt while wearing this ihram. This is prohibited. Do not hunt while wearing this ihram. This is prohibited. And remember that any one of you who deliberately does so, then its penalty is a similar animal from among your beasts to the one he had killed, whose decision will be made by two just men among you. And this will be sent to the Baytullah as an offering. Or if this is not possible, then in expiation, either the poor shall be fed or a similar number of fasts be kept so that he may taste the consequence of his deed. God has forgiven what has been done in the past, but if anyone does it again, God will soon take exact revenge from him. God is mighty and wise. So you can clearly see that this directive of prohibition of hunting in the state of ihram is a means of tests, is a means of test, and therefore it is something that you have to fully understand, that the Almighty is testing people, and a person who does not realize this, then he will be of course taken to task, that hunting during when a person is wearing ihram is like a big test. And it is also evident from this directive that this prohibition in the state of ihram by nature is a directive meant to try and test people. So if, in other words, they are directives given only to test the faithfulness of people. And since they seem to lack wisdom when viewed with regard to the expediency of people, they become a barometer to check if people believe in God without seeing Him, and also becoming a means of separating those who believe in Him without seeing Him and others who do not. So it is stated by the Quran that this trial will take place so that God distinguishes through it those who fear Him without seeing Him. And that is why لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَخَافُهُ بِالْغَيْبِ, the words are so that God may see who among you fears Him without observing and who does not. And therefore, as it is said that those who do not do so, then they should remember that this is a woeful punishment that they will be facing. And a person who deliberately kills someone in ihram, do not hunt animals while wearing ihram, of course, is the order. But if anyone is not able to honor this, then the next verse that we have studied tells us that there is an atonement for this, and that atonement is that a similar animal from among your beasts to the one that person has killed should be sent to the Kaaba, and the status of that animal will be decided by two just men. And obviously, if that is not possible, then the next best choice is that either the poor should be fed or a similar number of fasts be kept, so that the person who has done this deed is able to taste the consequences of his deed. And finally, it is said that God is mighty, capable of revenge. So this admonition is very severe. Since such directives, of course, are meant to test the faithfulness of their people, their violation or showing indifference to them entails a very stern punishment. And people who believe in God must always remain careful about them. And that is why it is said in such harsh words that وَمَنْ عَادَ فَيَنْتَقِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْهُ, that God has forgiven what has been done in the past, but if anyone does it again, God will exact revenge from him. God is mighty and wise. So that what has been done in the past is something that will be forgiven, but if you do it again, and the words are very, very harsh. They say that Wallahu Azizun Zun Intiqam, that God is mighty and He is going to take revenge. Next, the words are أُحِلَّ لَكُمْ صَيْدُ الْبَحْرِ وَطَعَامُهُ مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِسَيَّارَةِ وَحُرِّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ صَيْدُ الْبَرِّ مَا دُمْتُمْ حُرُمًا وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي إِلَيْهِ تُحْشَرُونَ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ الْكَعْبَةَ الْبَيْتَ الْحَرَامَ قِيَامًا لِلنَّاسِ وَالشَّهْرَ الْحَرَامَ وَالْهَدْيَ وَالْقَلَائِدَ ذَلِكَ لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. So the words are, lawful for you is the prey you catch from the sea and its eating as a provision for you and for your caravans. However, you are forbidden the prey hunted on the land as long as you are wearing the ihram. Do not go near it, and keep fearing God before whom you will be all assembled. So this is like understanding the fact that as far as hunting is concerned, it is absolutely forbidden to hunt animals on the land if you are wearing an ihram. But there is an exception if a person is traveling by sea. And if you look at the whole set of verses that delineate this directive, a small summary can be gauged, and that is that this prohibition of hunting in the state of ihram is only meant for animals on the land. Hunting sea animals or eating land animals which have been hunted by other people has been allowed. It's something that is lawful. And this concession for sea animals is given because if provisions become scarce in land travel, other options may be available, but in sea travel there is no option but to hunt animals. So that is why a concession is given when a person is traveling on a ship and he's traveling by sea. But this permission does not mean that people willingly or wrongfully, in fact wrongfully benefit from it. The prey hunted on land is prohibited in all circumstances. So if a person deliberately commits such a sin, he must atone for it. And as I've just said, that the verse that we have studied tells us that this atonement, this kafara as we call it in the Arabic language, it has to be undertaken. And a summary of this directive will show us that basically there are three options. So the first option is that a household quarter-ripped animal similar to the one that has been hunted should be sent to the Baytullah for sacrifice. If this is not possible, then the price of such an animal should be calculated and the amount should be spent to feed the poor. And if even this is not possible, then a person should fast. The number of these fasts should be equivalent to the number of poor a person has become liable to feed. Now, as far as the decision is concerned regarding the type of animal to be sacrificed in return, or if this is not possible, then determining the price of such an animal or the number of poor who should be fed or the number of fasts that should be kept, it shall be made by two trustworthy Muslims, Zawa Adlin, as the Quran says, so that no chance remains for the sinners to succumb to a wrong judgment. And this is something that is easily possible. And then it is said, God has made the sacred house Kaaba as a center for people and made the sacred months sacrificial animals and all animals whose necks are decked with collars to make them a sign of offering as religious symbols. They have been regarded as religious symbols so that it remains clear to you that God has knowledge of all that the heavens and the earth contain, and this is also that God is aware of all things. So the Quran says, وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ. And we clearly can see that as far as this directive is concerned, it actually tells us that as far as these signs of God are concerned, as you can see, the sacred house of God, which is the Kaaba, the words that are used for the Kaaba are qiyama linnas. And already we have seen earlier in Surah Baqarah, to convey exactly the same meaning, the word masaba has been used. So this refers to a place which is the center and the fundamental place for religious leadership for the progeny of Abraham. In particular, in just the same way as various capitals of the world are the centers for the political leadership of their respective governments. So that is what has been said, that the Kaaba is like the center of religious leadership for the progeny of Abraham. And that has been certainly been understood over the centuries. And the next thing, of course, is mentioned are the sacred months, and for this, which is the term is Asharul Haram. So remember, they don't refer to any specific month. The expression is a noun of referring to all the sacred months. It should not be think that because it is used in the singular, therefore a particular month is being used. No, it is a very common style adopted in not only the Arabic language but in various languages, in which a singular entity is mentioned, but of course it refers to the collectivity as well. And exactly is the same case here. That when it is said Shahrul Haram, it actually refers to all the sacred months, all the haram months. So and then it is said that these are religious symbols. So the word used are sha'air, and this is the plural of sha'ira. So the word sha'air is suppressed in this sentence because this is clearly evident from the context. I mean, although the word sha'air is not mentioned, so ja'ala Allahu al-Kaaba al-Bayt al-Haram qiyaman lin-nas wa shahr al-Haram wal hadiya wal qala'ida. So God has made them, but what has He made them? That has been suppressed. So clearly it is evident from the context that God has made them as sha'air. God has made them as symbols. And remember, dear viewers, that symbolism is something which is of a very, very, I would say, artistic nature. It is something that moves you the way poetry moves you. It has a symbolism in it. It is not to be understood per se. These rituals of Hajj, for example, or the Kaaba itself, the wearing of ihram, they symbolize a certain realities. They are not something to be understood per se. If we get entangled in the apparent, we will get lost and we will not understand the wisdom behind them. But if we look at the depth behind them and why they have been regarded so, then every single rite of Hajj, every single symbolism regarding the Holy Kaaba, the Baytullah itself, has some symbolic significance. And that is precisely what has been stated here. And then it is said, ذَلِكَ لِتَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ, that this has been done so that you know that the earth, that whatever the earth contain, and this is also that God is aware of all these things. So when a person travels to the Kaaba while becoming part of the symbolism, the reality of which he is reminded at every step is that God is all-knowing and discerning and is aware of everything in the heavens and the earth. It is this which produces the fear of God and piety in a person, and this is in fact the very essence of faith and religion. And we can see that how the Almighty has expressed His knowledge both in a verb, as scholars say, Ustaz Amin Islahi has pointed this out in his own exegesis also, that the word has been used, the verb has been used instead of word, أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ, which means that that God's knowledge is expressed in verb form and later on also in the form of an adjective, which is alim. So He's also ya'lamu, He's also alim. So ya'lamu, of course, is a verb and alim is an adjective. And the reason is that because the knowledge of God embraces the past, the present and the future. In fact, everything, the open, the hidden, the concealed, the existing, the unknown, the understood, the implied. And all this aspect of belief in God in a person, which creates in him the understanding and the comprehension of God. And that is why it is said that you have to fully understand that as far as God is concerned, He is going to take account because He knows everything. اعلموا أن الله شديد العقاب وأن الله غفور رحيم. اعلموا أن الله شديد العقاب, of course, means be on guard that God is stern in retribution and God is very forgiving and merciful. ما على الرسول إلا البلاغ المبين والله يعلم ما تبدون وما تكتمون قل لا يستوي الخبيث والطيب ولو أعجبك كثرة الخبيث فاتقوا الله يا أولي الألباب لعلكم تفلحون. The only responsibility of the messenger is to communicate. And God knows what you reveal and what you conceal. Say, the pure and the impure are not alike, even though the abundance of the impure may, however, much infatuate you. Thus keep fearing God, you men of understanding. Keep fearing God, you men of understanding, so that you may succeed. So, this style of admonition in the very last instance, Fattakullah, keep fearing God, O men of understanding, that you may succeed, is a very, it's a style of admonition after another. It's like a double admonition that you can see. It's actually meant to explain that God knows everything and people should be aware that none of their deeds are hidden from Him. And just as He is forgiving and merciful, He is also stern in retribution. So Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has explained this fact to people. It is now their responsibility. They should remember that God is absolute good and an embodiment of truth and justice. He cannot deal with good and evil in the same manner. It is possible that the abundance of evil attract people, but this abundance carries no weight before God. He only accepts what is pure, and only those who adopt piety and virtue will succeed before Him, because in His sight, contaminated concepts, adulterated deeds, and impure things will result in nothing but hell. So remember, as the verse says, that when abundance of evil is there to attract people, to infatuate them, it should not be a cause of people succumbing to them. This is a trial and a test that they are put through, And God is not going to accept people who are impure. For Him, purity is of paramount importance. And hence, it has to be understood that the trial which is mentioned regarding hunting when you are wearing an ihram is a very tough trial. It is a very tempting trial, in particular for the Arabs of those times, about whom I said, referred to earlier, that it was not only a support for them, but it was a very important means of livelihood as well. So now is the fourth question which is raised in the next verse, which is verse 101. It says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tas'alu an ashya'a an in tubda lakum tasukum wa in tas'alu anha hina yunazzalu al-Qur'an tubda lakum afallahu anha wallahu ghafurur rahim. So now this fourth question, and it starts off by this verse. Believers, do not ask questions about things which, if made known to you, would burden you. And if you ask them while the Quran is being revealed to you, they will be made evident to you. At this time, God has pardoned those things. And God is forgiving, very gracious. So from here starts the answer to the fourth question. As we have discussed earlier, that each of these questions begin with this generic phrase, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. So it is said that people should refrain from unnecessary questions, unwanted questions. This admonition actually was required because such questions tighten the limits of a directive. They narrow down the scope of a directive, and people are not able to follow them, and as a result invite the wrath of God. God wants that a directive be followed the way it is given. Difficulties should not be created by asking to explain what is concise and by asking to limit and restrict what is absolute. Also, it should be understood that we can say that the last Sharia of God revealed until the Day of Judgment is the one that is being revealed to the Muslim Ummah, and hence the freedom of ijtihad and fiqh should not be curtailed in it. The more questions are asked, the more the scope of the directive would be narrowed down, and the scope would be not conducive to exercising ijtihad and understanding the directive through our own intellect. There is a possibility that this freedom might get curtailed, because if you ask unnecessary questions, then the coming generations might be faced with hardships as a result. Such is the importance of asking questions, or not asking questions in this time. Remember, this was the time in which the Sharia was being revealed, and the Almighty wanted it to remain as concise as possible and not to make it comprehensive and not to narrow down the scope. So remember, this is not for all times to come. It's not being said that, or in other words, asking questions is not being discouraged. That's not the implication here. Asking questions when the wahi is coming down, when the directive is being revealed, that is what the purport and context is all about. Otherwise, of course, asking questions about various issues is absolutely encouraged. It is then said, قَدْ سَأَلَهَا قَوْمٌ مِّن قَبْلِكُمْ ثُمَّ أَصْبَحُوا بِهَا كَافِرِينَ. Before you, a nation inquired about similar things, then they became their very rejectors. Before you, this is a very clear reference, a very subtle reference, that it serves as an example, and the nation here refers to clearly the Jews. There cannot be any other nation implied, because they were the recipients of the Torah, the book given to Moses. They are mentioned as an indefinite noun. The words are qawmun. It's not been defined, but clearly this indefinite nature of the noun makes it even more prominent. An example of these questions is the incident of the heifer mentioned, of the slaughter of the cow, which is mentioned in verses 67 to 71 earlier on in Surah Al-Baqarah. So we know that the Jews, when they were told to sacrifice a cow in order to determine the culprits who had killed someone, this was a way to find out the killers. It's called the kasama. So they started asking various questions. God only wanted them to slaughter a cow, but the nature of the cow, its color, what it should be looking like, what it should be doing, these were the questions they continued to ask, and they have been this has been cited in earlier on Surah Baqarah, and this only made the whole scope of the directive narrower and narrower, and it became difficult for them to find such a cow. And if you see that the words are قَدْ سَأَلَهَا قَوْمٌ مِّن قَبْلِكُمْ, so the actual words clearly describe, it is meant to describe the category. It is evident that the parallel verses of the Quran, that Such antecedents are used in the Arabic language, and it's something very, very common. ما جعل الله من بحيرة ولا سائبة ولا وسيلة ولا حام ولكن الذين كفروا يفترون على الله الكذب وأكثرهم لا يعقلون وإذا قيل لهم تعالوا إلى ما أنزل الله وإلى الرسول قالوا حسبنا ما وجدنا عليه آباءنا أولو كان آباؤهم لا يعلمون شيئا ولا يهتدون يا أيها الذين آمنوا عليكم أنفسكم لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم إلى الله مرجعكم جميعا فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. So the words are, the answer to your question nevertheless is, so remember the earlier part was related to a principle. Now, because the question that was asked were regarding certain superstitious beliefs that they had, which are now being explained. So now the answer comes, it says, God has prescribed neither a bahira, nor a saiba, nor a vasila, nor a ham. I will just explain these terms. But disbelievers invent falsehoods about God, and most of them are those who do not use their intellect. And when they are told, come to what God has revealed and to the messenger of God, they reply, sufficient for us is what we have found from our forefathers. Even in the case when their forefathers knew nothing, nor were rightly guided, believers, concentrate on your own selves. If you are on the right path, then those who have strayed cannot harm you at all. To God shall you all have to return. Then He will let you know what you have been doing. So, the word, of course, which is mentioned here, of course, has to be understood that what is implied here is that God has not prescribed these forms as Sharia, the ham, the wasila. So all these have not been ordained, given any religious sanction. So God has not regarded them to be part of Sharia, and prohibition of certain animals by the idolaters and the names of Bahira, Saiba, Wasila and Ham is something that they have done themselves. Now, what is a Bahira? So Bahira is the name given to a she-camel which has 5 offspring, the last of which is a male. It's a bit complicated. So to the Arabs, a Bahira was the name given to a she-camel which had 5 children. Then the first 4 were female, and the fifth one was a male. And the ears of such a camel would be slit. They would be slit, and it would be left free to graze. So this is what a ham was, and the Arabs, this is what a bahira was, and the Arabs said that this is a sacred animal and it cannot be touched, so they held it with sanctity. And the Quran has dispelled this notion and said that, well, this is what you have made yourselves. God has never sanctioned them. Then the next thing which is mentioned is Saiba. Now Saiba is the name given to a camel which is left free once some vow has been fulfilled. Some vow related to that camel, once that has been fulfilled, then no work will be elicited from that camel. It is just left free. Then what is mentioned is the wasila. So wasila is that some people would make a vow that if a goat gives birth to a male offspring, they would offer it to their idols. And if it gives birth to a female offspring, they would keep it to themselves. And if she give birth to male and female offspring simultaneously, I mean both genders, they would call it a wasila. This is what a wasila is. So if a goat gives birth to a female offspring, they would keep it to themselves, and if they would be just male offsprings, they would dedicate it to God. But if the goat would give both male and female children, they will call such a goat as wasila, and they would not offer such male offsprings to their idols. So that is what has to be understood. And next is the ham. So ham is the name of a bull which has given birth to many offspring. It would also be allowed to roam free. So all these basically were rituals and offerings of the Arab Jahiliyyah. Such animals would be left on their own. They could drink water from any place, graze from any pasture, from any field. And no one could stop them or impede them. And such was their religious status and sanctity that they held that everyone would be scared to death of obstructing them in any way. This was the sanctity that these animals had. They could not be touched. They could not be in any way impeded. So the Quran has made it clear that they have no basis in religion. The only basis is held, the only sanctity is held by Hadi and the Qalaid, which have been mentioned earlier. The rest are mere superstitious whims. Regarding them to be a part of Sharia is a blatant falsehood on God and His Sharia. People devoid of any sense have ascribed such foolish things. So, as you can see, that God has said that He will let you know what you have been doing. Again, this is something which is absolutely like a warning. Earlier on, the Prophet was assured that his only responsibility in the capacity of a messenger is to communicate religion. So Muslims are similarly assured here that their responsibility too is no more than this. La yadurrukum man dhalla idha ihtadaytum ila Allahi marji'ukum jami'a. So if their addressees do not pay heed, they are not to blame. It is their misconduct that is to be blamed, which is the cause of denying facts. If Muslims fulfill the responsibility, they will not be asked about their addressees, and they should rest assured in this regard. And this is an absolute given, that they are not going to be responsible for what other people do as long as they are able to deliver and communicate the message of God. So with this ends the answer to the fourth question as well, and we will take up the remaining questions earlier on. In fact, this is the third, I think. So we will be taking up the remaining questions in our next session. For now, if you have any questions, please raise them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, or you can type them directly in the chat. And if you'd like to remain anonymous, you can send them directly to me in the chat. Our first question comes from Noshad Shafka. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. At the end of ayat number 94, it is said that God will exact revenge, and that God is mighty and capable of revenge. Revenge is probably a lowly trait, in the sense that we are admonished not to take revenge and forgive, and that would be better. How is using the word revenge, suitable for God?
So you see, this has a very specific context, and this is like saying that there are certain criminals, there are certain sinners who don't deserve any leniency, and they should be punished. For example, just to bring you in the human plane, if a person or someone molests a child or rapes a child or does such heinous crimes, then, I mean, there are certain things that are unforgivable. And for that, everyone would say that such a person should not be forgiven, and every type of revenge should be exacted from such people. So the word revenge is not spoken here in the context where a person may deserve forgiveness or leniency. So that is spoken elsewhere in the Quran, where the matter is between a person to another person, and someone has done an offensive thing, and people are encouraged that if they forgive that wrong, then it is something that is absolutely fine. But here it's like a test from God, from which they are being stopped to commit. Like the Sabbath, we gave this example earlier on, that the Jews were stopped from hunting fish on the occasion of the Sabbath, but they did not desist. And as we know, that the Quran says that such was the punishment that they suffered, that they became apes and swines. So in a similar way, this is like a limit which has been set by God. So God has told us that don't cross that bound, don't cross these limits. If you do so, then you'll be punished. So this is like a different sort of a thing, in which there is no question of forgiveness. I mean, that would arise when you would stay within bounds. But if you continue to cross the bounds which have been set by the Almighty, this verse tells us that you'll not be given any respite, and God is going to be swift in His reckoning. So
punishment to a better word.
Actually, you see, what has made this word a little negative in its connotation is its Urdu usage. In the Arabic language, when the word intiqam is used, it does not have a negative meaning in the sense that it has in the Urdu language. It just means retribution or punishment, as you have said. Something that you would be punished for, something that you will be chastised for. That is what is meant in the Arabic language. So for a lack of a better word in the Urdu language, at times even in the English language, because the word revenge is used in a negative connotation, so in order to remain close to the original Arabic, it is translated as revenge. Otherwise, the word revenge actually refers to chastisement and to retribution.
Sir, still I'm harping back on the same issue. Like the word propaganda, it doesn't have a negative connotation, but in the English language as used today, it is always considered to be negative. In the same way, when you are translating something into English, then I think the environment of the English language has to be taken into consideration. Here,
Right.
revenge to me seems to be a little out of the way for God. Could it be translated as retribution or?
Yes, I think so. I would say that if I were because remember this is a translation of the Urdu translation, because of the fact that in the Urdu language the word revenge or intiqam has been used. So as a translator, I was bound to actually follow the original. Otherwise, maybe if I had a free hand, I may have taken into account what you have said, which you rightly said that, and I might have used retribution or punishment.
Sir, for the permission of doing hunting about the water animals, the word in Arabic is bahar and is generally translated into river and at times at sea by different people who have done the translation. So Shehzad Ghamidi also used the word river. Probably the English translation says sea. Could you please elaborate because it's causing a bit of a confusion?
So you see, the word bahar can be applied to both a river and a sea. It's like a generic name. It's like saying land and sea. If you look at the words al-bar wal-bahr, they are used in the same sense as you would use in the English language by saying land and sea. So bar always refers to land, and anything which is not land is bahar, which is sea, which is water actually. So it is basically bahar means anything which is not solid but is made of water. So it could be a river, it could be a sea, but I think the word sea is more appropriate here because as I said, that land and sea are the two divisions of earth. I mean, you would not say land and river, you would always say land and sea. So that is why I have preferred the word sea here. Although yes, in the English language the word river refers to a smaller entity than a sea. Seas are of course large, and we still have oceans. And I reckon that some people have even translated this as ocean. So I would suggest that because it is being used in relation to land masses, it's actually referring to water masses. That preys which are hunted on the land, they are prohibited, but preys which are hunted on water, which is not a land, I mean wherever that water is. So because of the fact that we use the word sea always in contrast to land, it's just referring to any place where there is water.
Thank you, sir. Another question, if I may please be allowed to ask.
You can go ahead.
Okay, sir, in the translation and further explanation by Ibn Kathir, they have also discussed the issue of the animals, sea animals. They are thrown out of the sea, not hunted. So, sir, your views about those animals, are they halal or haram? And what about the hajis? Are they allowed to eat it?
They should not. I mean, it depends. I mean, are you talking about the fact that the fish just jump out of the sea and they end up on the ship or the boat?
Yes, sir. And maybe on the beach.
So I think that's like a area that in which we have to exercise your intellect and do ijtihad. And it does seem that because it's not, I mean, you cannot apply the word hunting. You cannot say that you have hunted that fish. That fish has automatically come to you. And I would suggest that this should not come under this prohibition.
Right, sir. And few of the translations that say that they have made Kaaba as a place of peace. So some of the people have explained that in their tafsir that before the judgment day, probably the Kaaba will be lifted, and if when it will be lifted, there will be no peace, and then the judgment day will begin.
There is no authentic narrative which says that. There are a lot of inauthentic narrations about the Day of Judgment and what will happen, but there is no authentic narrative to my knowledge which says that the Holy Kaaba would be lifted. In fact, what we know from other instances, especially Bible history, it is that near the end of times, the Gog and Magog nations would try to conquer all the people of the world, and they'll be successful in doing that. But when they reach the holy city of Mecca and Medina, which means the Arabian Peninsula, then they will not be able to enter it. A fire will come and destroy people, and that would be the end of the world. That would be the first step in which the world would be destroyed. I don't think that there is any such authentic narrative that says that the Kaaba will be lifted from the face of the earth.
Well, just a follow up on the marine animals, sir. What's your opinion that the marine animals that are expelled by the sea and found on the beach are considered to be halal or not?
Yes, of course. I mean, are you talking about the pilgrims, or you're talking about animals in general?
No, sir, generic.
Of course. I mean, if they are expelled and they are I mean, either you hunt them on the sea, and of course for that you'll need a bait and a fishing rod or whatever, or a net. And if that is not happened and they are just given to you, so to speak, they fall in your lap, why not? I mean, they will be considered as absolutely lawful. Why should they be considered as unlawful? The question is.
Right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Our next question asks, God didn't want people to ask irrelevant questions. So even for us, God expects us to follow general guidelines instead of making things too difficult.
That is not true. That is what I actually explained in my talk, and I said that this is particularly the case when He was being revealed, when the Quran was being revealed, and people were told that if they asked unnecessary questions, they will just narrow the scope of the directive. God wants the directive to be given in a general way so that you have some leverage, some latitude in understanding it. But if you keep on asking questions when God is going to answer them, nevertheless, because the Quran is being revealed, then you'll just narrow down the scope of the Sharia. So that is meant for that particular instance. Otherwise, once that has happened, the Quran has been revealed, this question is not related to general questions. I mean, a person is inquisitive, a person would like to know what religion is all about. So for such instances, if you have questions, if you have anything in your mind, it is in fact encouraged, and it is something that is a given, or it should be done, that you should present those questions, discuss those questions with appropriate scholars and authorities, because that is how you will be able to know about religion. So that is an entirely different category and should not be mixed up with what has been said here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question comes from Shabnam. Please go ahead.
थैंक यू मरियम सर। ये भी आपने कहा कि आपने इनकरेज किया क्वेश्चंस को। सर मेरे ज़हन में बार बार ये बात आ रही थी कि अहराम की हालत में अल्लाह ताला ने शिकार मना किया, लेकिन वो किसी और का कैच किया हुआ खा सकते थे। तो सर आई वाज वंडरिंग कि क्या जब वो काफिले की सूरत में ट्रेवल करते थे तो उनके साथ पिलग्रिम्स के अलावा भी लोग होते थे जो ये कैच कर सके, और वेजिटेबल्स तो जाहिर है उस एरिया में नहीं होती थी, और दे वर कन्फाइंड टू पल्सेस। जस्ट वांटेड टू आस्क सर।
I mean, this is something that we might not be fully knowing, but yes, there is a possibility.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. That was it for all the relevant questions.
Okay, so now I'll just do the literal and idiomatic translation, and then we'll have another session of Q&A. So starting off with verse 94, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, by now you should be proficient enough to translate this as, "O you who believe," or simply believers. La yabluwannakum means you shall definitely be tested. Allah, by God. Bishay'im, little bit. Minas sayd, from the prey, from among the prey. Asayd is prey. Tanaluhu, which will reach them. Aidikum, which will be reaching your hands. That will be reaching your hands, which means that it will be accessible to your hands. Warimahukum, so rimah is the plural of rumh. Rumh means a spear. Aid is the plural of yad, and yad means hand. So you will be tested with a little bit of the prey that will be accessible or reachable to your hands and to your spears. لِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ, li, so that يَعْلَمَ knows Allah God, man who يَخَافُوهُ feared him, بِالْغَيْبِ while not seeing him. So this will be because God is able to judge whether people fear him while not seeing him or not. In other words, this will be like a test to them. Fa, therefore, man, he who i'tada, transgressed, ba'da zalika, after this, falahu, therefore for him, azab, punishment, aleem, a woeful. So he who has crossed the bounds after this, after God has told them this detail, then for him is a very grave punishment. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, once again you see that generic sentence or phrase, O believers, la, don't, taqtulu, kill, as-sayda, the prey, wa, while, antum, you, hurum, in the state of ihram. So, O believers, do not kill the prey while you are in the state of ihram. Wa, and, man, he who, qatalahu, kills them, minkum, from among you, muta'ammidan, deliberately. So, he who kills such an animal deliberately, fajaza'un, then its expiation is mislu ma qatala, of the same category as he had killed. Mislu, of the same category, of the same type as he has killed. Minan na'am, from among the beasts. Yahkumu biha, decide about it. Zawa adlim minkum, two just people. So, two just people will decide that animal from among you. Hadiyan, as hadi, as a sacrificial animal. Balighal, in order to reach Al-Kaaba, the holy shrine or the house of God. Or, now the second option has been given, aw kafaratun, aw, or kafaratun, the atonement is ta'amu miskin, food for the needy. Ta'amu miskin, food for the needy. Aw adlu zalika, aw adlu zalika means of similar sort, siyaman, fasting, or equivalent fasting. Liyazuka, so that he tastes vabala amrihi, the consequence of his deed. Vabala amrihi would be the consequence of his deeds. Afallahu, God has forgiven. Afa, forgiven. Allah, God. Amma salaf, what has happened in the past. So God has forgiven what has happened in the past. Wa, and man, he who, ada, does it again. Fayantaqimu, therefore take revenge. Allah, God, minhu, from him. So he who does it again, God will take revenge from him. Wallahu, and indeed God, azizun, azizun means powerful, zuntiqam, capable of revenge, capable of punishment, capable of giving that person a stern chastisement. Uhilla lakum, lawful for you, uhilla, lawful, lakum, for you, saydul bahr, the prey of the land, the prey of the sea. Wa, and ta'amuhu, its eating. Mata'al lakum, its eating is something of a provision for you. Wa lis-sayyara, and for the caravan. Of course, it is referring to the caravan. Wa hurrima alaykum, wa, and hurrima, prohibited, alaykum, upon you. Saydul bahr, the prey of the land. Saydul bahr, the prey of the land. Ma dumtum, as long as you are. Huruma, in the state of ihram. So, it is forbidden for you that you eat the prey which has been caught on the land as long as you are wearing the ihram. Ma dumtum, as long as you, huruma, wearing the ihram. Wattaqullah, fear God. Allazi, who, ilayhi, towards whom, tuhsharun, you shall be gathered. So fear the God towards whom you shall be gathered. Ja'alallah, God has made Al-Kaaba, the holy Kaaba, Al-Bayt al-Haram, which is the house of God, the holy Kaaba, which is the house of God. Qiyaman lin-nas, the center for people. Qiyaman, center. Lin-nas, for people. Wa, and Ash-Shahr al-Haram, the sacred months. Wa, and Al-Hadiya, the Hadi, which is the animals which are presented. Wal-Qala'id, Qala'id, of course, is the plural of Khalid, and it refers to the collars, animals which are decked with collars. Zalika. This, and of course we have to also understand that the word Ja'ala tells us that God has actually made the Kaaba, which is the holy, which is the house of God, the sacred house. What has He done? He has made it Qiyama Linnas, a center for people. Until here the sentence is complete. But if you look at the other part, it says, and the sacred months, and the Hadi, and the Kalaid. What has He made them? He has made them as religious symbols, as sha'air, and this part has been suppressed. The word sha'air, as we talked about earlier, has been suppressed. So basically the construction will be Ja'alallahu Shahrul Haram wal Hadiya wal Kalaid Sha'air. God has made these things as religious symbols. Zalika, this is lita'alamu, so that you know. Anna, that Allah God, ya'lamu, knows, ma, what, fi, in, as-samawat, the heavens, wa, and ma, that, fi, in, al-ard, the land. This is because so that you know that God knows what is in the heavens and what is in the earth. Wa, and, anna, that, Allah God, bikulli, regarding everything, shay, thing. Bikulli is regarding every. Shay is thing. Azim, alim. Alim means knowledgeable. This is so that you know that God has knowledge of everything. Bikulli shayin alim. I'lamu. I'lamu means know that. Anna Allah. Anna that. Allah God. Shadid. Stern. Al-iqab, in retribution. So you should know that God is stern in retribution. Wa, and. Anna Allah, and that God Ghafurun Rahim, and that He is merciful and forgiving. Ma, not. Ala, upon. Ar-Rasul, the messenger. Illa, except. Al-Balagh, communication. So not on the messenger except communication. That would be the literal translation. And idiomatically we can say that the only responsibility of the messenger is balagh, is to communicate. Wallah, and God, ya'lamu, knows, ma, that, tubduna, what you reveal, wa, and ma, that, taktumun, you conceal. And God knows what you reveal, and God knows what you conceal. Qul, tell them, la, not, yastavi, equal, al-khabis, evil, wa, and at-tayyib, the pure. Tell them that not equal is the khabis with the tayyib. Not equal is the impure and the pure. Walau, even though, a'jabaka, you like, kasratul khabis, the abundance of impure things. So tell people that the pure and the impure are not equal to one another, even though the large number of impure things may attract you or may call you towards them. So that is what walau a'jabaka kasratul khabis. Fattaqullah, fa, therefore, ittaqu, fear, Allah God, therefore fear God. Ya ulil albab, O men of intellect, O people of intellect. La'allakum, so that you, tuflihun, are able to succeed. So, O people of intellect, first of all, it says, fear God, O people of intellect, so that you are able to succeed. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. So this is the answer to the fourth question. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tas'alu an ashya'a in tubda lakum tasu'kum. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, believers. La, not. Tas'alu, ask. An, about. Ashya, things. In, if. Tubda, make apparent, or to be made apparent. Lakum, for you. Tasu'kum, you will be burdened. So believers, do not ask about the things. If they are made apparent to you, you will be burdened. In tubda lakum tasukkum. Wa, and. In, if. Tas'alu, you ask. Anha, about them. Hina, when. Yunazzalu, is being revealed. Al-Quran, the Quran. So if you ask about them during the time that the Quran is being revealed, tubda lakum, they will be made apparent to you. They will be made apparent to you. Afallahu anha. Afa, forgive. Allah God, anha, about them. So God has forgiven about them, which means that something which has been done in the past has been forgiven. Wallahu ghafurur rahim. Wallahu ghafurur rahim, wa, and Allah God, ghafur, forgiving, halim, sorry, not rahim, it's halim. So halim means gracious, and God is ghafur, and halim, God is gracious. God is forgiving and gracious. Qad, indeed, sa'alaha, asked about it. Qawmun, a nation, min qablikum, before you. So such questions were asked by a nation before you. Summa asbahu. Then they became, biha, about them, kafirin, rejectors. So similar questions asked by a nation before you, referring to the Jews, and then they became its rejectors. Ma, not, ja'alallahu, God has prescribed, min bahiratin, from bahira, wa, and la saiba, nor saiba, wala wasila, nor wasila, wala ham, nor ham. So God has not prescribed or not made it part of the Sharia, whether it's bahira or saiba or wasila or ham. We've discussed their connotations earlier on. Walakin allazina kafaru yaftarun. Walakinna, but allazina kafaru, those who have disbelieved, yaftaruna, they do iftara, or they invent falsehood, or they in fact concoct falsehood, Allah, on God, al-kazib, something which is false. So in fact what is being meant here is that it is the disbelievers who concoct falsehood on God. Wa aktharuhum, and most of them, la, not, yaqilun, understanding. So, and most of them are people who do not understand. Wa, and iza, when, qila lahum, they are asked, ta'alaw, come, ila, towards, ma, that, anzalallah, God has revealed. So when they are asked to come towards what God has revealed, wa ila rasul, and towards the messenger, alu, they reply, hasbuna, sufficient is for us, ma wajadna, what we have found, alayhi, upon, aba'ana, our forefathers. So when they are called to come towards God, to what God has revealed, and to his messenger, they reply that sufficient is for us on what we have found our forefathers. Wajadna, we have found, alayhi, upon our forefathers, aba'ana. Avalau kana, even if aba'uhum, their forefathers, la ya'lamun, did not know, shay'an, anything, wala, and not, yahtadun, were guided. So this is like a comment that is being made. So they say that we will only follow what our forefathers did. And the Quran is commenting that even if their forefathers did not know anything and they were not guided, will they even follow them in such instance? Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, believers, alaykum, upon you, anfusakum, your own selves. So, O believers, it is you for your own selves. In other words, focus on your own selves. Don't think about other people. You are answerable for your own selves. La yadurrukum, la yadurrukum man zalla izahtadaytum. La yadurrukum, not harm you, man zalla, who has gone astray, iza, when, ihtadaytum, when you have been guided. Or if you are guided, then those who have gone astray will not be able to not be able to harm you. La yadurrukum, not be able to harm you. Man dhalla, those who have gone astray. Iza, when, ihtadaytum, when you have been guided. So those who have gone astray will not be able to lead you astray in case you have already been guided. Ilallah, towards God. Marji'ukum, do you have to return? Jami'an, all of you. So towards God will all of you return. Fa, therefore, yunabbi'ukum, he will inform you, bima, of, kuntum, you were, ta'malun, doing. So towards God you will have to return, and then he will divulge what you have been doing. So with this we come to an end to the idiomatic and literal translation, and so now if you have any questions regarding the passage that we have studied, or in the absence of that, any general questions, we can continue.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Shabana, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Walaikum assalam.
मेरा सवाल ये कि ये वो जो हज के वक्त जो उनके रिमाह और ईद का जिक्र है कि मतलब वो उनकी रेंज में होते थे इतनी ज्यादा तादाद में, बिल्कुल ऐसे ही जैसे बनी इसराइल को हफ्ते वाले दिन मछली के शिकार से मना किया था और वो उछल उछल के आती थी मछलियां।
Correct, exactly the same. Yes, that is precisely what we have explained as well, that the test was very similar to what the Israelites had to go through in the matter of the Sabbath.
अच्छा, और इसमें जो वबाल है ये उर्दू और अरबी का एक जैसा ही लग रहा है।
So wabal means consequence. So you see in the Urdu language, the word wabal Wabal is generally refers to a negative connotation, but in the Arabic, the word wabal means the consequence.
नतीजा जी,
Yeah.
consequence, ठीक है. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Riaz. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sahab.
Wa alaikum salam.
This the ayah number 100. I mean, it says Ya ulil albab. So I mean, the translation has been done. The people of intellect. I mean, but there are people who are not believers, but they have the intellect too. Is it specific for the people who are?
I mean, this is a very specific verse. I mean, it does not negate that people outside the fold of Islam are not men of understanding. That's not what the intention of the text here is. What is being said here is that you men of understanding, you should fear God. So it's just a factual statement that people who are men of understanding, people who are the adversaries of this book of God, you should actually pay heed and you should fear God if you have to succeed. So this has a very specific context. It does not negate that there could be other people who could also be, intellectually cognizable.
So it's very specific, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Akram Batisa, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mariam. Sir, first of all, can I ask an unrelated question, unrelated to the topic now?
We currently don't have any topic-related questions, so you may go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sir, my question is regarding those Jews who had turned to being apes and swines. Was that change only behavioral or was physical also? And that when once those people died, that was the end of it, or did it continue?
Yes, that is what we understand, that the way they have been mentioned is that their own inner selves were also distorted and perverted like swines and apes, and such was this distortion that it appeared outwardly as well, and they started to resemble the structures of apes and swines as well. So their appearance also it's not that they became apes and swines in the literal sense, it is that their appearance started to resemble these animals.
Okay. And once they died, at the end of it?
Yes, of course, because you see, this was a punishment given to the people who had violated the directive of Sabbath. So it was a specific punishment, not meant for everyone. It was the people who, deliberately refused to follow the orders of God regarding the Sabbath, and they were punished for that. It's a very specific thing.
Understood, sir. Thank you very much. Jazakallah.
Thank you. Shabnam, please go ahead.
जी थैंक यू सर. मेरा सूरह नजम सूरह नंबर 53 से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन है. उसमें अल्लाह ताला ने प्रॉफिट सल्लम को का जिक्र किया है कि उन्होंने हजरत जिब्राइल अलैहिस्सलाम को 2 दफा देखा. फर्स्ट टाइम बिल उफुकिल आला और सेकंड टाइम नियर सिदरतुल मुंतहा. तो सर मैंने गामदी अल-बयान भी देखी, लेकिन उसमें कुछ मेंशन नहीं है. आई वाज कंफ्यूज्ड कि ये जो सिदरतुल मुंतहा है ये मेराज उसका उस वक्त उन्होंने देखा होगा वहां पे.
No, there is no. Remember, Miraj or the ascension of the Prophet is not a physical journey, it was a spiritual journey, it was a vision that he was shown. So, as far as the Quran is concerned, both these two occasions in Surah Najm refer to the visual sighting of Gabriel. So, once he was, as you know, earlier on seen when he was in the Ufuq al-A'la, which means that he was on the far horizon, and then he descended to the Prophet. Summa dana fatadalla. He came very close to the Prophet, and then he delivered the wahi. That was the first instance, and then the second was walaqad ra'ahu nazlatan ukhra in the Sidrat al-Muntaha. So he was near the tree of Sidra, which is the berry tree, and indaha Jannatul Ma'wa, near the Jannatul Ma'wa, which is the temporary residing place of people who die, and they are shown paradise would be their abode. So, that is of course a place that we don't know. So, this also is the second view of the second instance in which the Prophet was able to view Gabriel from his naked eye.
Sir, how did he go to Jannatul Ma'wa?
No. It was, the Prophet was on earth and he could see Gabriel. He was given the power to see Gabriel. He never went there. Yes.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Salman Aziz, please go ahead.
So my question is related to the previous question I had, that some of the Mufassir have said that Kaaba will be lifted before Qiyamah. So I just scrolled the net and I found that Imam Darimi has narrated some hadiths and it's really declared to be Sahih. And he has mentioned that probably both things, that Quran and the Kaaba will be lifted before Qiyamah.
I mean, there is no. I don't think that any of these are authentic. Please send them to me, and I'll check their authenticity as well. But by the looks of it and the way other events have been described, clearly show that the Quran and the Kaaba would be with us right till the end. They will be with the believers. So I don't think that they have. I would not say that they are authentic, but I will still check them and see whether there is something else to it. I mean, at times there are narrations who are reported incompletely. So please send them to me, and I'll have it checked.
Right, sir. It was also mentioned probably in his tafsir by Mufti Taqi Usmani, also something like that. So just your opinion about Imam Darimi, could you please introduce or?
Well, Imam Darimi is Sunan Darimi is a very. I mean, it's not a canonical book. It has not been regarded as a very authentic book. But in spite of that, at times it contains authentic narrations. They have to be judged on the standards of hadith, and there are narrations which are found in Darimi and also corroborated by narrations that are found in canonical works. But that is all. Otherwise, it does not generally stand. Or it does not generally put up to the standards of hadith criticism, the narratives that are mentioned. Generally, it's not that all the narratives, so they have to be checked case to case and one by one, and then something has to be inferred from them.
So the first question asks, I've been going through a very difficult, complex situation for quite some time, and I've been praying, fasting, and doing everything practically possible to resolve the issue. But nothing worked. Recently, out of the blue, I got some positive development news. Out of the blue, I had thought that such a news I would fall in prostration, staying there and making a number of positive spiritual changes. But strangely, while feeling immense gratitude, I'm still feeling lost and depressed. I can't understand the situation. Have you come across such a scenario?
Well, I mean, if you'd like to give me some pinpoint guidance, maybe you can get in touch with me personally so that you can let me know what exactly are you going through. Otherwise, I mean, it's like a generic thing that you have just asked me, and I cannot give you any particular advice except that the fact that either you have to review a strategy, maybe the things that are happening against your expectation are happening because the strategy that you adopted may be falling short, or of course you have to accept the will of God that He does not want certain results to materialize because He thinks that they are not good for you, but you might not understand this at the moment. So this is a generic sort of a thing that I can say. But to give you a more pinpointed advice, I mean, you need to personally get in touch with me so that I can examine every detail that you have in mind and then give you more something more precise.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, how long does it take for someone to learn Quranic Arabic?
Well, depending upon the time you give to this whole exercise, roughly I would say if you give an hour a day, it should take you about a year or so. Hour and a half every day, about a year, around about a year, I would say.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, Quran also has the word of Jibreel alayhi salam. How did it become part of the Quran, and what was the reason for it?
I don't understand the question. Why should it not become the part of the Quran? Because he is the angel who brings down wahi to the Prophet. He did that earlier on to Moses and to Jesus also. So why shouldn't he be mentioned?
सर मैंने जिस तरह आपने सिखाया वो अरबी का तर्जुमा, वो जब मैं डेली करता हूँ आया पे आया कुरान का खोल के, तो I'm able to do like 90%, some 80 or 80%. जो होते हैं mostly vocabulary words that I have to look up, otherwise I can do.
Okay.
But when I'm reading Quran, I'm unable to comprehend everything. So what am I doing wrong? Or can you suggest something better way? When I'm reading Salah, then I can tell what I'm reading about, but not really comprehend. But when I karta hu, I can do it.
So all that you need to do is do a little practice on selective surahs of the Quran. For example, select any medium-sized surah, write down the vocabulary on one side. Don't consult it every time that you have. If you come across that vocabulary, it should be like written down before you beforehand, and read it verse by verse. And wherever you get a difficult word, you can just look up the words that you had already written down and then try to make sense of it. So I mean, it's
से आखिर तक कुरान पाक पढ़ता हूँ बार बार शुरू से आखिर तक.
yes. So instead of doing that, select a smaller surah and write down the vocabulary of that surah before you. It could be either on your phone or maybe write it down through a pen or a pencil. And every time you translate a verse, look at the vocabulary, and then see how that vocabulary can make you translate that particular verse.
अच्छी बात. शुक्रिया सर, जज़ाकल्लाह.
Thank you very much. Adil Qureshi, please go ahead.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर.
वालेकुम.
सर जो सवाल जो ओरिजिनली आई थिंक कुछ देर पहले पूछा था, जिसका आपने फरमाया कि मुझे स्पेसिफिक इंस्टेंस दें, तो मैं उस पर कुछ कमेंट कर सकता हूँ. वो सवाल की नेचर मुझे जो समझ आया था वो थोड़ी मुख्तलिफ थी, और वो आई थिंक एक कॉमन चीज़ है जो हम में से हर एक की ज़िंदगी में लगभग हो रही होती है. मैं आपको कुछ एग्जांपल्स भी दे देता हूँ कि मिसाल के तौर पे जब औलाद नहीं हो रही थी तो उस वक्त बहुत फिक्र थी और बहुत अल्लाह से दुआएं करते थे. जब अल्लाह ताला ने औलाद दे दी तो उस वक्त तशक्कुर बेतहाशा था, सजदे किए और बहुत खुशी हुई. लेकिन उसके अगले दिन 2-3 दिन बाद 3 दिन बाद वो बिजनेस एज यूजुअल बन जाता है. फिर वो जो शुक्र का एहसास है वो आपके दिल से जाता रहता है. इसी तरह और भी बहुत सारे इंस्टेंसेस हैं जहाँ पे नौकरी लग गई, किसी की कोई मुश्किल दूर हो गई, अल्लाह का बहुत शुक्र अदा किया, उसी वक्त सजदा किया, उसके बाद से फिर वो अगले दिन से ऑनवर्ड्स बिजनेस एज यूजुअल बन गया, फिर आपको एहसास ही नहीं होता. तो वो ये पूछना चाह रहे थे कि ये एहसास यानी ये कैसे किया जा सकता है कि अल्लाह का तशक्कुर जो है वो दिल में जारी रहे उन तमाम नेमतों के लिए जो उसने हमें दी हैं.
I think the only way out is to constantly remind yourself of these favors of God. See, I mean, all of us are human beings. We tend to get involved in our routines. We tend to forget so many things. We forget a lot of utterances that we even utter in the namaz. So, I mean, this is a common observation. So, the only way to keep connecting ourselves to God is to keep on reminding us what we have received from Him, and that is why in fact, the prayer has been called a reminder. The Quran has been called a reminder. So, zikra, tazkir, all these things, we as human beings, we need them. So, when we read the Quran reminds us of God's favors. He reminds us of how we can remain connected to Him. Similarly, when we sit with people who are pious, they keep on reminding us about God's favors. When we look at people who are in misery, we remember God, that, well, thank God we are not among them. So, you see, these are all reminders that God has created around us, and the more we are observant of these reminders, the more we are sensitized and sensitive towards these reminders, the more we'll remain connected. So, it has to be a conscious effort. I mean, it's not going to happen automatically. You'll have to plan for that I'm going to keep on reminding myself of what I have gained from God.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Our next question asks, I haven't had a video chat with my parents for 8 years. I try to avoid looking at their picture or videos because I feel sad, but I send them money regularly and talk on voice chat. Am I committing any sins? I thought when things will be okay, it would be fine, but it has been 8 years in the hopes and I'm stuck in a foreign land. I trust God's plan completely, so I don't have any complaints from Him.
I cannot, again, you see, this is a very specific situation, that why is it that you have not spoken to them in 8 years, what transpired, what happened, what is the background. Unless these details are known, I mean, no comment can be made. So you see, at times things happen in a very grave way. Parents behave in a very, very harsh way that you are put off from them, and the nature of their behavior varies from case to case. I can tell you that I have been dealing with certain cases in which the issue is incest, and of course that is one area in which a child never feels like even talking to the father, the girl talking to the father, as is the case generally, and maybe it is justified because this is an extreme situation. So there could be lesser situations, there could be a number of other reasons. So unless I am able to pinpointedly know what happened and what transpired, all that I can say is, well, do your best and follow your conscience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. What's the significance of shaqul qalb?
There is no such significance. It is more of a dream that was shown, and again, it was something that it was as if Gabriel had purified the heart of the Prophet so that he could become receptible of wahi, at best what can be said of such narratives. Otherwise, as people normally interpret these narratives, that physically his heart was taken out and it was given a bath or it was purified, that has no basis.
So just curious, in one of the previous sessions, somebody asked, which I missed, that that particular thing is part of Sunnah or not, and you were kind enough to write it down, and probably you wanted to
Yes.
consult it for later.
I'm so sorry. I remember one. I do remember that it was the Iqama. It was the Iqama, and it is on my agenda. I have not been able to verify that. Please forgive me for that. But inshallah, I'll do it this week. It was Iqama, that what you utter right before the prayer.
So thank you very much. Jazakallah.
Thank you. Our next question asks, Angel Gabriel is talked about a lot and mentioned in various hadith, as well as stories with other prophets. Angel Mikael is also named in the Quran, so what is his significance that Allah took his actual name? For example, in Surah Baqarah, ayah 98.
Well, this is because the Jews regarded Gabriel to be an enemy, and they regarded Mikael to be a friend. And so they are being told, "Kul man kana aduwwan li Jibrila fa innahu nazzalahu ala qalbika." So any person or any people or any denomination like the Jews, if you hate Gabriel, then remember he is amongst the angels, and all angels are of the same category, and Mikael is also an angel. So it is they who are being admonished and being told that you just cannot love Mikael and hate Gabriel because both stand for the same thing. Both are angels of God. So that is the context, and you can consult the Quran once again. It's very evident from the text and the context that it's basically the Jews who had they thought that why is Gabriel being used, and they thought Gabriel was like an enemy to them, and that is why the wahi that has been brought down to Prophet Muhammad was not brought to one of their own people. So they have a whole history of being antagonistic to Gabriel, and that is precisely why he was named with Mikael, because they regarded Mikael to be a friendly angel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Calling for any last minute questions? Sarwat, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब, ये सूरह अनफाल की वो आयत नंबर 48, मुझे ये बात नहीं समझ आई कि जब शैतान ने दोनों ग्रोहों को एक आमने सामने कर दिया, फिर आखिर में वो कह रहा है कि मैं तो अल्लाह से डरता हूँ और उसका अजाब बहुत सख्त है। उसको तो ऑलरेडी पता है कि उसके ऊपर वो अजाब आना है, तो फिर वो पीछे क्यों हट रहा है और ये डर का वो क्यों कर रहा है?
So it's لا تكونوا كالذين خرجوا من ديارهم بطرا ورئاء الناس ويصدون عن سبيل الله والله بما يعملون محيط وإذ زين لهم الشيطان أعمالهم وقال لا غالب لكم اليوم من الناس وإني جار لكم. So you are referring to this narrative, to this hadith, to this Quranic verse. So you see, the parable here is actually something that the Quran is discussed elsewhere also, and the shaitan, the word shaitan is actually being referred not in the literal sense to Satan himself, but to the Jews, because it was they who were being naughty in this matter, and they were trying to pit the two armies against one another. So basically, the Jews, they are being told, they are being referred to. And if you pick up any good tafsir, especially if you can see Ustaz Amin Hassan's live tafsir, he will be explaining you how in the Quran, one style of the Quran is that the Jews have been referred to in this meaning because they had played this prank.
Thank you very much. The next question asks, how do you deal with waking up lost every morning? It's so hard to go through day to day and constantly feeling fear or scared.
So you see, the best thing is that if you read the prayer of the Prophet, when you rise in the morning, the prayer tells you that you have to thank God for His blessings, for the breath that you are just inhaling. You could have been long gone in your sleep, but the fact that you have opened up your eyes, you're able to breathe, you're able to walk. So remind yourself immediately of how you have been able to once again resume life, because virtually The Quran is compared sleep to death, because just as you sleep, you don't know what's going on. It's like a state of unconsciousness, but you become conscious once again. So that consciousness is a gift of God. So as soon as you open your eyes, immediately realize or remind yourself of God, of God's favors.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, what exactly is the scope of the term ma'soom used for the prophets of Allah?
So ma'soom, although it has not been used in the Quran in this sense, the Quran has used the words Wallahu ya'simuka minan nas, God will protect you from the evil of people. But it actually means that while delivering religion, the contents of religion, they cannot err or they cannot falter. So whatever they receive from God, they faithfully transfer it to people. It's not that what they receive becomes blurred to them, or they are not very sure what they are receiving and what should they deliver. So it actually refers to the fact that in matters of religion, they will never err, they will never commit a fault in communicating the religion that they received or the wahi that they have received to people. They will deliver it as they received it.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, when you enter a graveyard, are you to say salam, and what do you say exactly?
So it's a prayer that we have been taught, a supplication that has been taught by the Prophet, which says, Assalamu alaikum ya ahlal kubur, inna insha'Allahu bikum lahikun, which means that peace be to you, O dwellers of the grave, and surely one day we are going to be among you. So this is like a prayer that you give to them, prayer of peace, and at the same time remind yourself that one day I'll be part of them.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. That was a rapid fire Q&A session, and we're done just on time. So actually this worked great. Thanks so much for another wonderful session.